Come back to Hollywood or you get back into the film business and you realize just how much time is spent on things that really don't matter, you know? When we were out in the middle of nowhere, the only thing that mattered was looking after each other and getting through.
You know, we may not see each other that regularly because we're all doing different things and to a degree spread out around the globe, but I definitely think there will always be some deep-seated connection between everyone that went on that trip. Just because you can't do something like that and be in some of those crazy situations without, you know, actually having formed a bond. And it's funny, you know, we were all guys, and everyone says, well, you know, this is like, you know, big boys' toys, all going around the world on bikes and great jacked up Jeeps. And we had I used to travel around in my Mitsubishi and wind up the stereo to the maximum volume with the windows down, sort of cruising through Kazakhstan for hours and hours, and I never ever got bored.
Ewan, Charley, and Claudio, I am so incredibly proud of those guys. I mean, these guys put on so many miles each day on the worst roads you can imagine. We didn't see roads through most of the countries that we traveled through. I mean, it was so tough on their bodies is what I mean.
I was going along the road and I looked down and all I saw was this sort of shake every bump. Look, this is Kazakhstan, right? And this is the roads in Russia.
What are the roads in America?
You suddenly think they've been doing that for like, I don't know how many miles up to that point. I mean, maybe 10,000 miles of like loose gravel, mud, rain, dirt, mosquitoes. You know, getting up, sleeping in a tent, the clothes are always wet, putting wet boots on, wading through like sub-zero streams. You know, I don't think people quite understand how difficult that is and what strength of character it takes. You know, it can't be physical strength. You know, yes, you need that, but it can't just be physical. It has to take an extremely strong mental mind to keep saying, I'm going to keep going. And, you know, because you could really, you know, not collapse in that situation, but you could really just say, I've had enough. And I never, ever heard those words. Every time I ever saw Ewan, he was smiling. Hi, mate, how's it going? You know, and he was back on his bike and riding on.
You know, here is this superstar. You know, he's a superstar. He would never say it. He'd never admit it. He'd never want to recognize that, but he is, and not just as a guy. And I'm lucky enough to have gotten to know him, but you know, he's one of the most talented creatures on the planet. You know, he is, and he's got every reason to have a little attitude. And he had zero on this trip.
Could have gone to Cannes. Could have been in the south of Spain. Could have gone to, I don't know, Mexico or something. Gulag country. Oh my God. when I really went in that puddle, didn't I? It's a shame we didn't get that in film, but Claudia was holding my bike because I'd fallen off. Claudia was on my bike and it was mud, really, really mud. And I was standing in a puddle and we were fighting the bike up, wrestling to get it up, and we got it up. And Claudia was holding the back and I said, have you got it? He went, yeah, I've got it. You got it, I've got it. Okay. So I stepped away from the bike, swung my leg up over it, and this foot gave way in the mud and I fell back in the puddle. I went...
They were every day up for it. You know, every day. It wasn't like, let's take the day off or, you know, let's think of an easy way out. You know, these guys are so tough. They were so tough throughout the whole trip that, you know, I don't know. I'll never forget it. And, you know, I think one of the problems maybe if you look at the footage, you know, because we were smiling all the time, I don't think people realize just how tough it was, you know.
I spent half my morning thinking, should I get out of the tent? Should I get in the tent? Should I get out of the tent? And I was sort of half dressed about 5 times. And then I heard a truck or a Jeep or something that I heard, so I thought, fuck, I better get out.
You know how you see me drying my socks so lovingly last night? I had them completely dry by the fire, and then I put them inside my sleeping bag so that as I slept they stayed warm, and they were completely bone dry this morning. I was putting them on.
They just disappeared off the bank, and then all I heard was this beep. So I rushed out, ran up the bank and saw the Jeep turned on its side. So I shouted to Ewan, I said, Ewan, help, we need help.
I ran out and immediately my socks were soaking wet again. That was a pain in the arse. But Charlie, in the meantime, had pulled the windscreen out of the Jeep and pulled the two people out of the car.
I never did any work with people like Ewan with that kind of image and status. But I thought that could be a problem. But the great thing to see was, first of all, during the shoot, there were absolutely no inhibition. You basically shot whatever you wanted to shoot, and there was no kind of barriers to say, no, you can't do that, you're not allowed to do this, and but you never shoot me in the morning when I get up because I look grumpy and I'm impossible. No, nothing. You just basically take it as it is, and that was probably one reason why this film worked so well, because there is no setup, nothing. It was just exactly how it was.
Who's my lovely puppy dogs? Who's my wee puppy dog? Who's my lovely puppy dog? Who's my wee eagle puppy dogs? Oh, 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 oh. I don't come up and bite your beard. It's quite a funny feeling, actually. I know, you're lovely. And you don't get out enough, do you, to have a run around? Yes, you do. Oh, oh. Oh! Oh! That was my face. Yes, I've got a face under all that hair.
Whenever there are shots of Ewan and Charlie riding down the street from a high angle or even from a low angle, I'd either be hanging out the window of the car filming them, or I'd be up on the roof with a big camera, and I'd just stick my legs in the spare tires, even in like rain. I mean, and we're going through like the most horrific terrain you could possibly imagine. And I'm just like, it's a crazy ride.
I try to really, let Ewan and Charlie do their trip, because it's their idea, it's their trip, and I really try not to interfere. I try to be the shadow, just following them, which means I try not to get involved with things. And fortunately, I actually got on with them very well on a personal level, and that's really nice. But it's something which you can't expect straight away.
We experienced these places in a very real way. It was. I look back on it, and I wonder if we would, if the next time we do this thing, I hope we can maintain such a tiny, tight crew, because you go around the world, with 50 people, it's different than going around the world with 5. So that's what was amazing, that we actually did something that nobody thought we could do, and we put 5 people under a lot of pressure, tremendous amount of pressure, and we all, hopefully we made something that people dig, and I think we did, and we got everybody around safely, and everybody's still friends. So that's quite an accomplishment.
And I think if you could mix that, a brand new idea, never been done before, improves people's lives, you have fun doing it, you can make a bit of money, and it benefits other people. That's not a bad mix. And that's my life. That's what I was put on the planet to do.